Greetings, traveler.
So, I'm going to start off with the subjective part, just starting with myself. Well, first of all, let's state the facts, right? Let's first of all state the facts so everybody knows what's going on. Let me grab the Reddit post. It'll be easier to build off that. So, anyways, I'll just read it out loud. You can find this yourselves if you use !RIP buckets. Just one word. It's not really a word, but whatever. So the post states two things. The first one is pretty interesting for the very, very immediate future. The other one is what we're going to be talking about more. So the first one was that he talks about the micro adjustments. They usually happen after bucket changes, a few days after. Now, a few days ago, we had bucket changes, so that means we are very likely to receive micro adjustments, I would say, between today and Wednesday. I hope. That would be my prediction. Now, that being said, the more shocking part of his post is he says in patch 15.4, we're going to try to do an arena patch without buckets. We're going to have all cards be part of a giant pool, similar to how the early days of Arena works. I'll just read the entire thing, right? Theoretically, buckets made individual arena decisions a little more interesting and put more weight behind how a card works in a deck you are drafting versus its power level in a vacuum. While I think there is some truth to this, I don't think it's been well-received change. I don't think it's been a well-received change overall. For new players or players inexperienced with Hearthstone, the idea of having obvious choices is a win. For hardcore players, if the change to the bucket is not a clear upside, which has been most of the feedback we received here, then it is probably just not worth doing. One positive part of not doing buckets is that the micro adjustment patches should happen faster in the future because there does not need to be a preliminary bucket adjustment patch to set the stage. All right. So that's what's going on. They are just planning to remove the buckets altogether. And as I said, I will be breaking it up into two parts, a more subjective and a more objective look at it. So personally, I really dislike the change. I don't think it'll be good. I think this is sort of this is a step backwards when it comes to making the arena more competitive. Because you can say what you want about how the buckets have been implemented right now. And, you know, if we're honest, it's not great, right? And I feel like I'm a more moderate voice in the arena community. I rarely, go after Blizzard to be like, oh, this is unacceptable, but if Rap Golem gets bucketed in bucket 5, and if the buckets are based on pick rate rather than win rate, and there are all kinds of things that you could do to make arena more rewarding for skill, more rewarding for knowledge about the system and all that. But that's okay, because I realized that that would be a little selfish if you could make a ton of changes that would benefit the more hardcore player and maybe be at the cost of the more casual player. More knowledge required, more, or rather, if you reward people with knowledge of the system, then I guess by default you punish those who do not have knowledge of the system. So I think that's fine, right? You can't go too overboard, but as I said, this is pure subjective. This is pure how I experience it. So this for me is definitely a step backwards towards how it used to be, right? You just throw all the cards together in one pool, and what happens, right? You get a bunch of insane cards, you get a bunch of bad cards. There's a little control over that. Now, don't have to go too crazy, right? Arena was without buckets for years before they introduced the system, and we were fine. We built decks, right? We got more crazy decks, we got more shitty decks, right? The range is bigger, I feel, right? You get more decks on either end of the spectrum. But we were fine, right? So I don't want to make this a doomsday video. We're going to be okay, right? Like, we played Arena before the bucket system was there, and we'll play Arena after the bucket system is there. So, we'll be fine. But when it comes to rewarding skill and to making interesting drafts and to really allowing people to, you know, almost go beyond just the game and really theory craft on how you can get the most out of your drafts, I feel that's going to be a lot less. I think it's going to be a lot more about, well, you're going to open up the arena and then, you know, figure it out, right? Every draft, just figure it out. So that might be an upside for a lot of people, right? They're like, I don't want to bother having to know what's what and what to skip. I just want to have a draft and have it be different. And, you know, I get that. That is not how I like it. I like things to be a little bit more predictable because I think the more predictable it is, the more you can affect it, right? And that is, after all, let's close this, right? That, after all, is the goal, I would say, of the competitive player. Is how can I make this so that I have more control over what happens, and, you know, as a result, increase my win rate. And I feel like that will be less with the new system. I've never felt as much in control over my drafts as with the bucket system. And, you know, flawed as it may be, you know what to expect and you can build a system around it. Okay, so that's how I experience it. Now let's look at it from a few different angles. So I've already sort of set the stage. I've already set the stage for this with my previous comment, is that a lot of people don't like that predictability. A lot of people don't like that decks look similar, that you can make a good guess about what your opponent is going to play on which turn. As a competitive player, for me, that's weird, right? Because I'm like, hey, I want to be able to calculate things better. I want to be able to play around things better. If I have a smaller pool of cards to play around, I can do this more efficiently and I will be doing better than the player. Because if you're not playing around anything, you would get punished a lot more if there was a narrow pool of cards to play around. Whereas if there is a giant pool of cards to play around, then, you know, the guy who's not playing around anything is not going to do that much worse than the guy who's playing around a lot of things and doing the best he can. So as a competitive player, you know, it's not like I don't understand it, but I'm like, you know, because I think there are a lot of skilled players, right? Maybe not the majority, but there's still a lot of skilled players who welcome the change, who do not like the buckets. So I'm just saying, for me, it's like right? You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to being able to affect the result. But, you know, there's probably things I'm missing there. And I'm sure that, you know, they have valid points as to why this would be incorrect, right? So we'll leave that up in the air for now. But anyways, right? Now we are talking about just the hardcore arena player. Now let's look at everyone else. If you are not playing arena to do the best you can, then a little crazier might be more fun, right? A little bit more variety might be more fun. So I can see this change overall being a win, which is, you know, it's sad to say as a more competitive player. I can see the change being a win for Blizzard and for everyone as a whole, because it's like, yay, more craziness. Yay, that's why I play arena. I see it when I read on Reddit, right? Some of the reasoning behind people applauding the change. It's like, yeah, I don't want arena to be something where I have to play around shit, or I don't want arena to be like a constructed light version. I want it to be crazy. If like these are comments that I read. It's like, if you want balance, don't play arena. And I'm like, oh, it hurts me, right? Because I've been playing this format for years and I truly enjoy it, and I think you can become really good at it. And I think it'd be a wonderful thing, right? To try and get more balance and more order in a system. But a lot of people don't like that, right? They want it to be crazy, no rules, Wild West, anything goes, 7 fireball decks, let's go, baby. And yeah, maybe that's the future of arena, right? Like more craziness and the catering to the more casual player. Not to say that it's only casual players that applaud the change, right? I think I made that point clear before that. Now let's look at it from a Blizzard standpoint. They have implemented the bucket system, and maybe this is my fault, right, as a more moderate voice. We are usually not so loud. I loved it, right? Like, it was done poorly compared to what it could have been, but I still think it was a whole lot better than not having buckets. And maybe I was not loud enough about this, right? My appreciation for the system, I loved it, right? I really, really enjoyed it. There were a lot of people who were very loud who either disliked the system or had some big criticisms. And I'm not saying that you can't critique Blizzard, of course not. But if all they're getting time and time again is, you guys are terrible at this is shit, why are you doing this, blah, 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 blah. At some point they go like, yeah, why the fuck are we doing this? Let's just go back to before, and then they can't complain about it. Now, is that a really mature approach as, a big company? I don't think so, right? And there's probably more to it than that, but I don't think you can deny that it's a little bit like that, right? People are complaining and they're like, okay, if you don't like it, we'll drop it. So, like I said, that maybe the people that did appreciate it, maybe we should have been a little louder. Maybe we should have been like, no, I really like the system. You guys could do way better, but please don't go back to before. Like I said, this change as a whole might be a win because Blizzard's not going to have to deal with the rebucketing anymore. So they can focus more on micro adjustments. Now, micro adjustments are going to be another interesting problem, I would say, because not having buckets, I would say, makes micro adjustments more difficult. Now, something I'm assuming they're going to do, and that's an assumption, is I guess they're still going to have buckets internally and micro adjust based on that. But then when it comes to offering rates, that will affect it, but cards won't be offered in those buckets, if that makes sense. So to make my point clear, they can probably still, let's say, what is a clear bucket one card? I guess Valspine for Rogue is a bucket one card. I would assume so. They can just say that bucket one cards receive an offering penalty, but then Valspine does not necessarily need to be offered against other bucket one cards, but you'll see less Valspines because bucket one gets an offering penalty. I'm assuming that's how they're going to micro adjust. I don't think they will micro adjust every card individually. I think that'd be a lot more work, and that'd be, that'd be weird. Maybe they will, right? Because they did say that they would continue micro adjusting. So they're not just giving up on balance in the arena, but it will not be through buckets. So yeah, that's my assumption as to how they are going to balance cards, balance the classes. Now keep in mind that this is for patch 15.4, and that is likely not going to happen before the rotation, meaning the 2 monthly rotation where the arena gets new sets. I would assume it's either going to happen then or more towards the end of that meta. So either at the start of the 2 monthly rotation or at the end of that one. That would be my expectation. Anyways, I think I've covered most points. I think I'm going to open up for a little bit of Q&A here for anyone that's here that has a question or suggestion or anything they want to talk about, because there might be some cool things I skipped over. And then we'll close this one. But I do want to end on a positive note. As I said before, we've been playing Arena for years without buckets, or rather we have played Arena for years without buckets, and it was fun and it was cool. So we'll definitely make the best out of it. And you can still make certain archetypes, right? It's just going to be less consistent. So when it comes to what I can offer to you guys, I will probably make it more, it'll be a lot more work for me, I'll put it that way, because now I could give you guys sort of generic approach as to how to go about the arena, something that would work for most classes. Now I'm assuming that once this change comes around, I'm going to have to go very class specific. So that is it's more work for me, but it won't change much for you guys. You guys will just be like, mage, this is how I should draft. So I'll do my best for that. This isn't going to be another TFT stream, right? I assume not, unless Arena all of a sudden goes, goes under. But like I said, we have had this system for a long time, so I don't assume that I think the main issue is some cards because of buckets you don't see at all. See, I don't think that's too big of a problem, but that's once again from my my argument as if you are a competitive player and you really enjoy getting the most out of the game, like try to squeeze for every percentage of win rate, having less cards in the game is good for you, right? Having less cards means there is a better way where you can play around specific cards, because a lot of opponents are not going to go through the trouble to really think. Because what I do is like, all right, turn 7, I don't want to put a 5 health minion out because you go Warbear. Same for turn 8, I don't want to put a 5 health minion out because you can Pit Croc. If you're going to remove the buckets, right, it's not going to be like that anymore. You're not going to be able to be as specific. Like versus a Paladin, you don't really play as much around Consecration because Consecration is offered against Kings and True Silver, and usually people take the True Silver there. Same with the Kings. You don't play around Kings as much because True Silver usually gets picked in that bucket. For me, that's good. I like that. But once again, that's very subjective. I know that there's other people who experience that as a problem. I experience that as an upside, right? A lot of people complain like, oh, these cards, you never see them anymore. I'm like, good, right? Less cards to play around. You can do more with your game plan. You can do more with your drafts. It's up to the point where you can be like, well, I would pick this card, but it's good versus certain cards that you don't really see right now. And Monday stream, yes, that's pretty that's pretty normal these days. Code for Coffee. I've been streaming every day for the last month. Today is the 31st day that I've been live every day. Do you think they will micro adjust well, because before there was none of that and there were always unplayable classes? I think a lot is going to depend on what system they're going to use. Are they going to have an offering bonus on, how are they going to do it? Are they going to have the class offering bonus? Are they going to have the weapon and spell offering bonus? Are they going to have the set offering bonus? A lot depends on that, because if you have the set offering bonus and have that be the main driving force behind your, weighting of the cards, it's really hard to make a class good when they get shit offerings in their set. That used to be the main, that used to be the main indicator of will a class be good, is which class cards did they release for that set. I will take you back to League of Explorers, I believe, where Warrior got Fierce Monkey, Warrior got Obsidian Destroyer, and something else, and all of a sudden, ding ding, Warrior was a playable class, and before that it was quite terrible. So for a while, when you reliably got a bunch of Fierce Monkeys and Obsidian, is it Destroyer? I don't know. You know what I mean, right? The wrapped golem. Warrior has a wrapped golem, so that used to be the system. So you would see, okay, which cards were offered, right, with the expansion bonus on it, and that was also part of why Firelands Portal was such a hated card, is every mage had 2 to 3 portals, and then the good decks had 5 portals. That's how it used to go. So I could see, like, a lot of the people that applaud the craziness, right, they're maybe going to enjoy it a bit at the start, and then they're going to face a 5 Firelands Portal deck and be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, that's how it used to be, my man. It's like, it's not crazy, right? 5 Firelands Portals was not like absolutely unheard of. Whereas now, 5 Firelands Portals, right? Just, imagine, that's crazy. Even getting 5 Pit Crocs, which is a neutral card, like, I'm not even sure if I've had drafts where I've been offered 5 Pit Crocs. And that's just a regular neutral card. All right, so I'm going to continue answering some questions for a little bit, and then we will close this and move on to playing. What number of cards of Arena would make it that's where I wouldn't really know, Daparachik. I know that for me right now, we're definitely not too... the range of cards is not too small for me right now. I don't know how much smaller you can go and then say, like, oh, is it still fun? Because, I think I'm also a bit more on the extreme end there. I can have fun in a pretty small setting. Same as I did enjoy Constructed as well, because a lot of people are like either Arena or Constructed. I enjoyed Constructed quite a bit, and a lot of the time it's very, very small changes, right? Just you play with the same deck over and over, and it's like, oh, do I want that Plated Beetle or do I want that Gastropod? I don't know, right? I'm gonna play another 100 games to figure it out. Those are the things that I enjoy. So for me, I'm a bit more extreme there. I can derive a lot of joy out of very little variety because I like getting it right, and it takes a long time for me to feel like I got it right. I got it right. So I don't need that insanely big card pool to keep myself entertained. We don't know that, Revenite. That's the thing. Blizzard hasn't shared that yet. What they have shared is that they will not offer based on rarity. So I'm not sure if that means that they will either not let rarity be a factor or that they will just offer cards across all rarities. I'm assuming that it means that rarity won't be a factor other than legendaries. I think legendaries should still be treated that way. You know, you don't want Zephrys to be as common as a Wisp, right? You know, like, well, whatever. But that's the that's the thing right now, is we don't know which rules they will be using. So we will have to see how they implement that. I'm hoping that we will get a little bit of a rule book. Is it 10% on the class cards? Is it 20% on the class cards? Is there a class card offering bonus? Is there a weapon and spell offering bonus? Is there an expansion offering bonus? Because if you know those things, you can say, oh, I might pass on this good card because I'm more likely to see it again because it hits a lot of those multipliers. So that's something I'm hoping that they will... that's something I'm hoping that they will... disclose, that it's not just like, well, we made changes, good luck, right? Because I mean, we will figure it out eventually through a big sample size. You know, Adwok, Merps, Tarot, Dr. Stein, they dive into those numbers and they will figure it out eventually what all the bonuses are. It would just be a lot more fun if they would just tell us, you know, the percentages.